Okay, hello. This is our
Second.
seventh.
Oh, I thought you were going to say our second time recording this because it is.
It is, yeah. We had so many interruptions that we said, okay, let's start over. It's been 5 minutes and we got interrupted like twice every minute. But it's our seventh episode, and well, update on the house. It's still under construction. Hopefully, by the time that this goes live, it's already done. But we record usually at the beginning of the week, so.
Mm-hmm. It'll be Christmas a week from today, I think. Is next Monday Christmas, or is it Christmas Eve? I don't know.
I depend on my phone for dates. So
Yeah, I don't know, but I think it's something like that. Um, yeah, we can just jump right into the topic, I think,
yeah,
and I'll let you handle that. Marcos um, had an idea of what he wants to talk about, so
yeah. I had somewhat of a long download after I woke up at 5:30 coughing because I'm a little bit sick, and I woke up. What was it on Sunday? Yeah, Sunday, 5:30 a.m. Started coughing, and then that interrupted my sleep, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll wake up, and I was just writing this these ideas that just came to me, almost like channeling a little bit, and so basically, what I want to talk about is collectivism versus individualism and how each one affect your financial freedom.
yeah, or your ability to attain financial freedom.
Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
think abundantly. And
Mm-hmm.
um, I should get my cell phone because I have some notes
Yeah,
there that I was actually.
and it's kind of funny because um, is your light flashing? No, we also listened to another podcast that talked about something similar. So it's interesting to me when, like, because this has happened to me too, where I think of an idea and then I hear it in another podcast, and it's like there is some type of energy out there that's resonating, and people are thinking about the same thing. Oh, hello. Oh my goodness. Cat just jumped in my lap.
Yeah, it has been happening to me a lot
Yeah.
with um, King Arthur and like the Arthurian legend. So I don't know. I just heard Arthur, Arthur everywhere. So
Yeah. That's been something really strange that's happening to you. The cat, sorry, we just got a little bit distracted because he farted right on me
yeah, little
and then
kittens.
attacked me.
Yeah, and then I sprayed him. So
We're trying to
with
teach
a
him.
bottle here that we have. So yeah, I mean it's kind of funny how those things just they, you become aware of those. I think that you have to have, and what's been happening to me since I'm trying to grow that intuition part of me. I've been more in tune with or more aware of these messages that the universe
Mm-hmm.
has for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized that I didn't know about, much about the Arthurian legend, and well, I'm almost becoming an expert about it right now. So
And did you listen to that part in that one podcast?
yes, I did. Yeah,
And I thought that might have some answers for you because he was talking about sovereignty, and I don't remember what was he saying about.
yeah. So basically, so Camelot, the way that it was, see, now I learned a lot that I can talk about. So the way that Arthur King did it in the legend, right? Because nobody knows if it's real or not, but um, Camelot was designed in a way instead of a king sitting in a throne. What King Arthur did was convert the throne into a round table where all his knights
Mm-hmm.
and therefore, like, they were kings of different kingdoms too. um they had equal rights and decision to King Arthur, or somewhere around those
Yeah.
lines. That's kind of
Well, I think about that as a democracy, like a true democracy.
well, kind of, because you still have like those
The
people in
people have,
power.
yeah, I guess those people were in power. You're right. So it's not so much the people have a say, um, but I guess each one of them could bring the ideas of the people of their kingdom
Yeah,
and
if
say
they
this is what
listen
we
to.
want. Yeah, if they listen to it. So I
Yeah,
guess not quite, but
but it is kind of like, because then you have a round table. So the podcast, what they were saying is like the first round table is yourself as an individual. Then a little bit farther, it would be your family. A little bit farther, then you have like your neighborhood and maybe your city and local
mm-hmm.
government. A little bit farther, you have the round table of, and all round tables on around those things. A little bit farther, you have the round table at the state level, round table at the country
Mm-hmm.
level, and then round table at a world level, where like there are people that are representing each individual from selected,
Yeah,
to just simplify, because that's basically
yeah,
what government is supposed to be.
yes,
We're not supposed to like have black cops and you know billions of dollars or trillions of dollars lost by the Pentagon and who knows what, or
yeah,
all these things that usually happen within the
corruption.
government, corruption, and
Mm-hmm.
all these things. It's supposed to serve, the government is supposed to serve the people. So that's basically what he was saying about the round table, because
Yeah,
it is to facilitate construction of roads, making decisions on those things and facilitating
right.
all that stuff. So,
So you grew up in Argentina, which is a collectivist society
correct.
and socialist.
It
And
has been for 70, 80 years, something like that.
mm-hmm.
It it wasn't like that though. So the Argentinian constitution, I think we talked about it a little bit in our last podcast when we talked about the new
Mm-hmm.
president. It was a libertarian constitution,
Right,
but it was changed a lot during Juan Domingo Perón's presidency.
right. So yeah, Argentina, you grew up in a collectivist society.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Even though the country wasn't designed that way, it has been like that for 70, 80 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like that my whole life, too.
Right.
So I think I have a pretty good grasp on what a collectivist society is.
Mm-hmm.
And there are different levels of it, too. Like your experience at more of a community or, collective type thing at a friendship level, for example.
Yeah, that's one thing I really noticed the difference. And I think there's obviously pros and cons of collectivist and individualist societies. The
Definitely.
pro is of the community you get, but there's also each pro also has its con side of it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because then like you have a lot of peer pressure too, and maybe we're going to talk about it a little bit too. Of at least from my experience, like you may think that you want certain thing just because the group or the group of friends that you have goes more towards that direction. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it could be as simple as, I don't know, the sports team you're a fan of,
Yeah.
and as complex as what you want to do with your life. So,
Yeah, and I also think too that's normal as you're growing up to kind of like identify with certain groups to try to figure out who you are.
yeah.
So I think a part of that's not just like a collectivist society, but what would you say are some of the beliefs that could be different in a collectivist society as a whole versus an individualist?
Well, I mean, so the main things is that collectivist society. So you let me get my head straight
Mm-hmm.
here. You're saying like what's the main difference when you're growing up or in general
Mm-hmm.
lines? Because when you're growing up, the main difference is that you like the friendships you form. At least it wasn't my case. I would have to ask do a census about this, but they're a lot more authentic
Mm-hmm.
because you're not going to hang out with someone that you don't care about. At least it wasn't that wasn't the reality for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had at one point like five different group of friends or something like that. It like I'm a very sociable person. So um well, I didn't used to be when I was a kid, but then when I was a teenager, that's kind of the story that I had to change in myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be wanted, accepted.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing though that it that collectivist society brought me a lot of very strong friendships that I still have to this day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's, there's still that here in the US. I think a lot of people, it probably just depends on kind of each person's experience
Yeah,
and what, I don't know.
yeah. That's why I'm saying like that's to my experience because
Yeah.
then I was thinking about a few other people and maybe they don't have the same strength in relationships or friendships that I had.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about people that I still talk to today that maybe they're not true friends. Like I'm not gonna tell them my problems type thing, but I still talk to them. But
But one thing that stands out, I guess, a belief in a collectivist society is, let's see if I can word this, like, instead of each person getting to decide kind of what they want to do and, going off in the world and maybe making their own business and stuff, it's more, oh, I knew I was going to have trouble articulating this. Like, um,
I think I know where you're getting at.
yeah, like,
It's more about
it's
like
more,
the common goal of a certain group or society rather than like for example here the steps are you finish high school, you go to college,
mm-hmm,
and when you go to college you're thinking about yourself, you're thinking about like okay, what do I want to do, which it also could be a mix of different influences from your parents and peers
mm-hmm,
and family and society. I'm not saying that it wouldn't be, but there's a lot of I in that decision as well,
mm-hmm.
which I haven't experienced that in Argentina, at least and we're talking about a country that has severe economic issues, of course,
Yeah.
where you if you like when I was growing up, a running joke, quote unquote joke,
Mm-hmm.
was that you had people with PhDs driving cabs, like
Yeah. So I think what I was trying to say is like you work more for the group instead of yourself, or instead of, it's more thinking about like society as a whole. You're working more for the group.
yeah, yeah, and I think there's it's shame upon, if
Mm-hmm.
I'm using that word correctly, to think for yourself, to be ambitious, to have your
Yeah.
own business.
Right.
Um, that is something that um, I saw when I was growing up and really impacted me in my own decisions as well. That everything had to be for a noble cause, a righteous
Right.
cause.
Mm-hmm.
And as an individualist, you can be righteous too. But in a collectivist society, you have that thing where it's like, yeah, you can be righteous, but
Rageous,
it
you mean like righteous?
righteous
Mm-hmm.
accent.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No, I just want to make sure.
um, you can still be righteous.
Hmm.
Okay, okay. I'm not. I don't want to say that word anymore.
It's fine.
Um, but it is. It's always everything is focused on the community. If
Hmm.
you're not focusing on the community and you're focusing even a little bit on yourself, then that's not right. Where here there's a lot of emphasis on how special each individual is. it,
Hmm.
Even though like we're right now United States as a society is moving towards more
Collectivism.
collectivism, but
Right.
it is a lot of focus in the individual
Hmm.
here.
Yeah, I'm not as I remember learning about this in college, I think in like sociology or something. So I'm not very what are you looking at? Oh, your notes. Yeah, I might be at a loss for words because I don't really know a lot about this topic.
About what collectivism is.
Yeah, well, more about like socialism and versus like because I really feel like socialism and collectivism go hand in hand.
Well, yeah, yeah, and socialism is just a nicer word for communism,
Yeah,
because
moving towards communism, basically.
yeah, I mean, socialism is just like the entryway. It's like if we're sorry for this example, like if we're talking about like old way of thinking about drugs, for example, as marijuana being like the entryway to
Right,
harder drugs, is like the word socialism is a softer word for communism. They basically are one and the same.
right. And so I'm finding myself wondering, like, what are the things that the government is telling the people? Why do they continue supporting that type of government when it's so detrimental to creating? It's like it cuts off your creativity.
I think that's very intentional because, and I didn't used to think this, like, to everyone that's listening, I changed my point of view when, like, from like 20 years ago, from 15 years ago, 5, 10, like, I changed my point of view a lot, but I've been changing towards what I'm at, where I'm at now, for a long time. I used to be a huge fan of collectivism and big state and all this stuff. Okay, part of it is because of what government and society, therefore society too, and the culture becomes, right. um and it tells you to that if there's no government looking after you, then society has failed. Like,
That's what I was looking for.
yes, so it's taught in a way, or the indoctrination maybe says, if you think as an individual you're bad,
Hmm.
and you're not going to, you need to think about the country as a whole. You need to think about your neighbor
Hmm.
before you think about yourself.
Yeah.
And that is very detrimental. And also, it basically cuts your creativity because you have to depend on somebody that's not you. Those are two things. There's a
Hmm.
third one, which is removing the blame from yourself,
Mm. Yeah.
because you're poor not because it's your fault at all,
Hmm.
which some cases is not. I mean, let's face it. Sometimes you just were born in a poor, but my belief is that you stay poor because
Your
you,
beliefs keep you apart, but yeah.
yeah. And that's another thing. It's always blaming something else. So what happens in Argentina? Well, the Argentina economy is bad. Why is it bad? Well, because Europe and United States have been stealing our land for forever, for 200 years. So we need more sovereignty, and we need to kick out those Yankees and those Europeans. Yeah,
Mhm.
but we're also gonna sell a bunch of land to China. And it's like, what? Okay, like those are the discrepancy
Mhm.
that I started seeing, and I started being like, okay, you're just exchanging the bad guy then, because there's still an external someone that's controlling us.
Mhm.
So it's removing the blame. So you remove the blame, you create an enemy. The enemy is United States and Europe.
Yeah.
The enemy is capitalism. The
Mhm.
enemy is the rich.
Yes.
That's the third part.
Yeah.
Blaming somebody outside of yourself
Mhm.
makes you not have control over what happens in your life.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep, you give up your power.
Yeah, it's not your fault. And there's nothing you can do about it. Here, take this government program and
Yeah.
go buy some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, like you're kind of told where to go, what to do. And so you have no sovereignty and no creativity.
And is it kind of funny? Isn't it kind of funny that, I grew up listening a lot about sovereignty as
Mhm.
a country, but they completely remove all your individual rights.
Mhm.
And this happened with the government that Argentina just voted out, the party that just voted out. You can't renounce to your Argentinian citizenship. So I think that's wrong because you can do with yourself whatever you want.
Yeah.
Um, because even before I went into this path of you know being okay with money and like kind of getting rid of my collectivist
Mhm.
ideas and all this stuff, even before then, something that I had clear was that freedom was very important,
Yeah.
very important. And like, because I was almost like, yeah, I was more leftist, but honestly I was between leftist and anarchist.
Yeah.
I some people are leftists and they love Fidel Castro and El Che Guevara, and I had my admiration for El Che Guevara, but I always hated Fidel Castro. I thought he was a fascist. I
Mhm.
still think about that today. Same thing with other characters in the left field that are, to me, fascist, even more fascist
Yeah.
than those people in the right wing that they call fascist.
Something that's interesting to me is I feel like people, so people who are followers of Fidel Castro or people now who are like some of the people you know in Argentina who call themselves Peronists, right? Is
Mhm.
that how you would say it in English?
I would think so.
Yeah, like this, these, I feel like what they want is what we are saying, what we're talking about. What's you need to think about yourself as an individual. You need to practice your creativity. And this type of society that they believe in will not support that. Yet it's like, it's almost like this idealist image that they have of it. And they think one day they'll get to that point where they'll feel those things that gives you, which is when you are being authentic and you're in your true self and you're being creative and you're speaking freely and living freely, you feel good.
Hmm.
And I feel like they want that, but it's almost like they're trying to get there through someone else giving it to them or something.
Well, I think it's because everybody has a way to do things. I think the problem with what's happening with people in Peron's party
Mm.
is that they are seeing it as a um, instead of seeing it as politics only or economics only, and seeing what fails and what they think that their party, because it's their favorite team has
Hmm.
all the answers, one. And two, they think that their way is the best way and there's no only way. There's no
Yeah,
other way.
but and that's the indoctrination that has happened to them.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
and I had one of my best friends in Argentina stop talking to me out of a simple conversation. I told you about this.
Hmm.
So this was almost 10 years ago, actually. I was talking on the phone with him. I was on a lunch break, I think, and I was going to get some food, for lunch. I was already living here in the United States, and we were talking on the phone. He was in Argentina because, thank God, we have like WhatsApp. Well, thank God, thank some engineer out there,
Hmm.
right? Um, and we were talking on the phone, and we were talking politics, and he said something that I disagreed with, which is like, well, there's good indoctrination and bad indoctrination. And, through, I was like, okay, tell me more. And through that, he's like, well, the indoctrination of my party is good indoctrination because it's for the good of people. And if you think like an
Hmm.
individual, then you're evil. You tend to
Hmm.
have very selfish tendencies, and
Hmm.
that is very bad for society. So we need to indoctrinate people to not have critical thinking. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and I stopped that right there, and I was like, I disagree with that. I don't think that you should indoctrinate anyone. I think that people should make up their own mind about stuff with their own experiences and research and knowledge. He couldn't handle that simple phrase that I just said
Yeah.
and never spoke to me again. He was one of my best friends, like a
Yeah.
brother.
I know who that is.
Yes.
Hmm.
So, and that's the other part too that I see a lot in the collectivist part, that it makes it, that doesn't mean that it's not in on the other field, but I see it way more on the collectivist side. That is like, this is the way,
Yeah.
and there's no other way. You're 100%
When they make
with
you try
me
to feel,
or 100% against me, even if
yeah.
you're 98% with me.
Yeah, they try to make you feel like a bad person. They're basically taking your need as a human being to feel good and feel loved and wanted, and they're twisting that to so that you're controlled by
Correct.
their message. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there's something that was said a lot, which always kind of gave me Nazi vibes a little bit, with the Peronist Party
Hmm.
when the that 21st century wave, which was like within the state, everything; outside the state, nothing. And I'm like, well, that sounds a lot like fascism. What the hell did I just vote for? You know, because that's exact. I think that's exactly what Mussolini said. Who was Mussolini? If you don't know this, because maybe you don't know a lot about history, he was the Italian dictator that allied himself with Hitler.
Hmm.
So, I mean, there's a lot of those
Well,
tendencies there.
and I, it's we keep talking a lot about Argentina, which is I think it's good because we're speaking to a lot of Americans, and I think the message that we want to give people your perspective so that maybe we can help change some people's minds and help people think more critically because we don't want this to happen here in the United States. We can't let this happen because we we won't be able to have financial freedom anymore.
Yeah, if those ideas take a hold here, unfortunately, the beauty of this country is gonna probably go away. It is one of the last places where you can actually own land. If we talk about real estate, for example, I think one of our friends and clients sent me an article that I couldn't read because I don't pay for the New York Times. but it was saying something about like the 30-year trap, something like that was the title, talking about 30-year mortgages. And she was, oh well, I read it, and it basically says how unique this 30-year mortgage is in the United States, because there's no other country, or if there is, there's like one or two more countries that do a 30-year mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's less amortization in your mortgage. But the 30-year mortgage, what it does, it allows people that are lower middle class to achieve home ownership,
Yeah.
which it is something that, like, so people have an idea here in the United States. And the reason why I talked so much about Argentina too is, well, one, because I grew up there and I want to compare it so you know how lucky you are to be here.
Mm-hmm.
My dream was to rent. My dream was to live in a house that my parents weren't living in. That was enough for me.
Yeah, because another thing that happens a lot in collectivist societies, is you live in the same home as your extended family.
Yeah.
So there could be more than one. Your grandparents live there, your parents live there, your cousins live there. You like, and it's not. I mean, in your case, the home was tiny.
The
You
home
like they
was
kept
tiny.
building on top of it.
Yeah. Well, and that happens in my case, it happens in a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on when it really starts. And in my family, it started back, when before I was born.
Yeah.
So, it is, it's very hard for an American to understand. It's like, what do you mean that you live? Yeah, you don't have the chance to go and rent something so easily. Because here, at least, like, it might be a very crappy place. You may need to live with roommates, but you're gonna live somewhere else and not with your parents. And there goes the dog
Yeah. Bye,
back
Risa.
to her bed.
Yeah, and it's almost like I'm sitting here just kind of be like, yeah, it is hard for me to understand the some of the concepts and like articulate them, because I grew up in the United States, so
Yeah,
I don't really understand. I don't understand it, but I see how it's moving towards that as I've grown up. Like some of the things you're talking about, how I see how there is an agenda to push those beliefs and control.
yeah, and to me, I was listening to a very small fraction of a speech of Jordan Peterson, and he was saying, like, how can you tell someone else how to live their lives? How to, with a simple example. He was saying it with a simple example. If your house is a mess, how can you tell somebody else how to organize their house?
Yeah.
Which is it is what I see a lot from a lot of people that are more collectivists, or even like, one this socialism,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's completely wrong, because it completely removes that sense of self. Your actual individualism, of course, is completely removed too. Your right to do with your own property. That's something else that is so unique to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
You have right to property. Is it taxed? Yeah, we can talk about that in a different podcast. But you have right to your own property, which is unique around the world too. It's truly yours, and only under very extreme circumstances they can remove it from you.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what happens a lot. Removing the self, and what I was thinking is it's kind of funny that you sent me that um, podcast, that was talking about Camelot, and
Mm-hmm.
how, you're the first round table is you, the second is your family, and so you grow, right? So I was thinking that at 6:30 a.m. or something like that, I was like, I'm an individual first.
Yep.
I'm a member of my family second, but
Mm-hmm.
first is the individual always. Then
Mm-hmm.
is my family. Then, it grows to my neighbors, to my society,
Yeah.
and what I
Well, it's like we said before, if each individual can figure out how to do something they love, how to contribute, how to serve others in a way that feels right to them, that is what they would choose to do every single day of their life. They love that. It's like they're born to do that. We all need to individually find what that is for us and do that, because when we do that, then it helps other people do the same, and it's a ripple effect. So
correct.
once you do, it's that's how you help other people, is you first
Help
help
yourself.
yourself, you first know yourself and live and life authentically.
Yeah, because you have to ask the question, who am I? And what is my place in the world?
Yeah. What is my
There's a
purpose
lot
here?
of I in that. There's a lot
Yeah.
of,
Because it, and then that comes back to like, because if you move more into a spiritual perspective of that, we are all connected, and I is we, because I am you and you are me. So it's like they want us to forget that.
yeah. And yeah, those, whoever
Whoever is
is
pushing
pushing.
these agendas, they want us to forget that, because then we become powerful.
What happens is that, isn't it kind of, uh, I don't know, contradictory or like ironic that the people that are pushing collectivism are making you forget who you are as an individual. Therefore, you forget your place in the bigger picture, which is in the collectivist,
Yeah.
in the collective realm.
Mm-hmm.
So you figure out your place by focusing on yourself first, and then you see, oh, I
Yeah.
see now. I see now how, the where my place is. But if you focus about everybody else first, then you don't find that. Therefore, you're not connected to everyone else at all.
Yeah.
So it's that,
They're doing it backwards.
how do you say it, duality, that contradiction.
Yeah. Contradiction.
And it's beautiful, that duality that exists there.
Yeah.
So the way that you achieve community is through the individual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's like kind of the law of our reality, is that duality in everything. I feel like if you can understand that in everything, then you've kind of unlocked a secret.
Yeah. And once you figure out who you are and what you really want to do, then that frees you up to actually do it and help people and make money doing that. Therefore, you can
Yeah.
help more people, because it's not about being rich. Like the idea, at least that I have about an individual or capitalist society, is not about,
No.
um, it's not with the mentality of accumulating wealth and being like the dragon that has a lot of gold and just
The
guards
Smeagol
that.
mindset.
The Smeagol mindset, yeah. It's not about the Smeagol mindset, which is lack of mindset. It's about being, it's not about money, but about the freedom that that money will give you.
Right.
And it's about creating a life that you don't need a vacation from. That you take a vacation because, like, you're like, oh, well, I want to go visit
Mm-hmm.
Austin, Texas, because I've never been there. Sure. Not, oh man. I'm waiting for my 2 weeks of vacation this year. I can't wait for that. You see
Right.
how that's
Hmm.
different?
Yeah. Yeah. It's about doing what you want and just that's what abundance is you are creating from within and automatically abundance flows towards you when you are putting out that energy of creation of what you are here to do.
Yeah.
And that is the true freedom, is to be able to do that one thing that you are meant to do on in your life and get paid for it. It's just, I mean, it's just we've made up this thing called money to exchange value, exchange goods, and whatever. Like it,
Yeah, back in the day, instead of money, you always had gold, but people who didn't have gold, they would say, "Well, I have a couple sheeps there. I'll give you one if you give me, half the cow that you just killed." You know?
yeah, and maybe in the future, money will disappear and it will be more about exchanging energy in the form of just services. I don't know.
Well, or service, like, okay, I'll
Hmm.
give you a sheep if you help me build my house. It's
Yeah.
still the same,
Or
and
just the knowing that everything is evened out. It's all evened out. So it will, you give to somebody else and you'll get back. I don't know.
I think awakening to that makes you take your power back, your own power, and your power of creation. And once you have that power of creation, it helps you focus on many things which are going to make your life better through financial, um, through the financial realm, through the relationship realm, the family realm. You become better
Hmm.
as yourself. I think that, and I'm reading through, the points that I wanted to talk about, and
Hmm.
of course, like we talked about Argentina, comparing how a collectivist society can, it is, and I think we needed some explanation on those little subjects there,
Hmm.
um, even though it took quite a bit. But then, as to me as an individual, the way that impacted me that is that it hurt my sense of self, and it created this
Guilt.
guilt. Well, not only guilt, but this need to be wanted,
Mm.
this need for external validation for being good. Because when I was growing up, I've always been the biggest fan of Michael Jordan
Hmm.
ever since I was a kid. I mean, and so me, this little kid in Buenos Aires in the '90s, was looking at Michael Jordan and seeing him succeed and all that stuff, and his story about how many times he failed and he still persevered and um, won everything, and not only that, but the talent too. That was something to
Hmm.
admire, and then how he was admired, and then of course from the perspective, how much money he made just playing basketball.
Hmm.
So those, now I used to see it more as that external validation, as the applause, as the lights, the attention. Right? I wanted that.
Hmm.
If I was going to play basketball, I was going to be like Michael Jordan. If I was going to play guitar, I was going to be like John Lennon
Hmm.
or Bob Marley. It was never, for me. It wasn't. It was more about the recognition that I would have, rather than the happiness of doing the activity itself. which it comes from that I mean, it can happen here too,
Yeah, I think everyone has some type of need for external validation, but
but
I can't say to that because I didn't grow up in I have similar things too, but yeah.
that need to be wanted also created in me this um way of being that I was more of a chameleon. So I was watching Michael Jordan, so I started playing basketball. Other kids start playing soccer because they watch, I don't know, Maradona.
Hmm.
Um, and then I started hanging out with people that, where I was always into rock, but that were more into rock. So I became more into rock than anything else and adopted this rock and roll mentality of like, this is the best genre and
Hmm.
everything else sucks type thing. Then I became a musician because I was hanging out with musicians. So the need to be wanted made me think that that is exactly what I wanted to do. Where I saw, and then now looking back, it's like, well, I like playing guitar, but I did it more for the attention rather than for myself. And that was the difference between me maybe not being as talented as other people.
Yeah. I think that also has to do a lot with your parents and upbringing as well because it's like I just think about all teenagers, we're all just think about in high school, like there was the emo kids and there was the popular kids, and it's just that's kind of a normal thing growing up as you want to fit into a group to be accepted.
Yeah. And what happens too is that since you have it's very stigmatized to want to be rich.
Yeah, that for sure I think is different in collectivists. I mean,
I
it
mean, that kills your
probably depends on which
abundance
school
in
you go
money.
to here as well. Because I went to Orno,
Yeah.
so most kids there were rich.
Well, but I went to a private school in Argentina.
That's
I had
true.
a
Yeah.
scholarship, but I still went to a private school. And I mean, I think that I was kind of saved, air quotes,
Hmm.
by some teachers that were like, yeah, this is all fine, but also this other thing. Like, it wasn't as indoctrinating as, looking back, especially as I compare other things that I hear about how school is right now. I'm like,
Hmm.
damn, like really? But I had quite a few teachers that were more worried about our critical thinking rather than not. And still, I thought when I left school, I thought that communism was the greatest thing, and it was never applied good.
Hmm.
But, at the same time, again, to me, it was like my idea of communism was more something like anarchy when I was young. But, like, so what is something that happened that kind of killed my um, attraction, not my attraction, but my ability to attract
Hmm.
wealth
Hmm.
is so, and I wrote it down because it's like I can't say it in any other way. So, money is evil.
Hmm.
Money is for rich people. Rich people are bad because money is evil. I'm not bad equals I'm not rich.
Yeah.
I'm good, I'm poor. And that equals to I can't be rich.
Hmm.
Otherwise, I'll be bad.
Yeah, for sure.
So you see how
Yeah, I see
that,
that. I see that thought being put into people's heads here too.
and it's very celebrated to
Hmm.
have absolutely nothing. To me, that creates a lot of anxiety because I mean, I had absolutely nothing for real, and
Hmm.
that's not pretty. That's not a stable environment for a kid.
No. No, yeah, it's all that same conversation we were having at the end of the other podcast last week was if you admit that you want money, if you admit that that's your goal, then there is that thought here like, oh, like, God, there's more. There's more to life than just wanting to be rich. There's more than just, you know, making a certain amount of money. Like, yes, there is. Of course there is, but it's okay to want money. It's okay to want to be rich. There's
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to be rich. If that's what moves you, if what moves you is achieving a certain number in your bank account, great. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's a great goal to have, right? So I don't think it's bad
Yeah,
at all.
and if there's some type of lesson you need to learn along the way, you'll learn it. Like
Yeah,
it's like people need to step out of the way for if that's that person's motivation, then let them go. Because if they need to learn more meaning, they will. Maybe they'll amass huge amounts of wealth and then they'll realize that at the end of the day that it isn't about that, but it doesn't matter because it's all it's all about the fun and the game. Just like you
yeah.
decide you want something and then you go and do that. That's all it's just fun.
And you figure yourself out.
Yeah.
Like something that I'm gonna say that I think that people misunderstand. When I talk about my past in Argentina and growing up poor, I thought I was middle class, but again, when you look at it from an American point of view, I was very poor. And it's not that I'm complaining about it and I'm like being victimized by it and I'm like, oh my God. No, I think that all those experiences built the way I am.
Mm-hmm.
And the more soul search that I do, the more reflection that I do, I understand how important it was that I was born where I was born at the time that I was born,
Mm-hmm.
that I grew up the way I did, because through that struggle, I could figure myself out. And my path is unique. Would have loved to come to these conclusions 10 years ago? Yes, of course, but it wasn't my time. I wasn't going to
Yeah.
understand it. So I think what people forget a lot is that when it comes to, oh, money is evil, like, and we need the government, and it's like, no, 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 you don't need the government. What you need to do is figure out through your struggle, figure out who you are and what your strengths
Mm-hmm.
are gonna be,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how you figure out who you are, what you want to do for
Yeah, and your
real.
strengths come from your struggles,
Yeah,
right? So I think I hear our daughter up there doing something.
yeah. I think this is a good
At
point
any
to.
point, yeah, and we. Oh, there she is. Okay. Um, I'll just say, oh, Romiela, can you just be quiet for just a second? We want to talk about some of these more controversial topics because they're important, and that's part of our journey too. Is it's scary sometimes to share thoughts that not everybody agrees with, but we have to because it's important, and it's like we really think that sharing this could help and help change the future for I don't know our world and our children.
Yeah, our
So
country.
our country, yeah.
Well, and like you said before too, um, if the reason why we talk about Argentina so much is because I come from there and it's my experience. If I was from the Soviet Union or if I was from Venezuela or Cuba, I would be talking about those countries specifically and how those things impact that. I've heard a lot of people from all those countries that I just mentioned warning me about what they saw. And there's a lot of people in Argentina that weren't, especially from Venezuela, because there was a big Venezuelan immigration to Argentina, warning people
Hmm.
how that
Yeah.
Peronist party was acting just like Chavez
I met a
before.
girl when I was traveling and she just was talking about that. Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
and when once you see, when once that you had the experience and that happened to you, you try to tell people because you're like, I just got away from that. Let's not bring it here, please.
Yeah. Well, we better get going because our daughter still hasn't fallen asleep and it's 9:49 right now. So,
Okay, so we're gonna end it here and take our daughter to bed.
yep. We will be back next week. Bye everybody.
Bye bye.